Sophia's hands were shaking, but she refused to let the frosting show it. She leaned closer to the 3-tier vanilla cake on her work table, guiding her piping bag like it was a lifeline. Buttercream roses bloomed under her careful touch, soft, perfect spirals of pale pink, each petal shaped with the patience she'd learned from a life that never gave her patience back. The tiny bell above the bakery door rang. "Just one moment," Sophia called without looking up. Her voice stayed warm because customers didn't deserve to know how tired she was, how sore her wrists felt, how the rent notice taped to her fridge at home had been staring at her for a week like a threat. No answer came. Not even the usual shuffle of shoes or the polite cough. Just silence. Heavy, unnatural silence, as if the air itself had frozen. Sophia's piping hand stopped. She lifted her head, and her entire world tilted. A man stood inside her small neighborhood bakery like a shadow cut from a richer universe. His suit was black, perfectly tailored. Not office black. Not funeral black. It was the kind of black that looked expensive and dangerous at the same time. His presence filled the room the way a storm fills the sky, quiet but unavoidable. His eyes were the first thing that hit her. Green. But not normal green. They held a strange glow, like old gold hidden beneath emerald glass, an impossible shade that should not exist under cheap fluorescent lighting. Sophia hadn't seen those eyes in 3 years, and yet she'd never stopped seeing them in her nightmares. "Luca," her voice came out as a breath. The man's jaw tightened like it always used to when he was forcing himself not to feel something. "Sophia," he said, and her name sounded rough in his throat, like it hurt him to say it. For a second she forgot how to breathe. Luca Marchetti was not supposed to be here. Luca Marchetti didn't walk into little bakeries in modest neighborhoods. Luca Marchetti belonged to another world, one made of wealth, fear, and the kind of power people pretended didn't exist. And he was looking at her as if she were the ghost. Sophia forced her hands to set down the piping bag. She wiped them on her apron even though it didn't matter. Even though her heart was already racing like it was trying to escape her chest. "What are you doing here?" she asked, keeping her voice neutral by pure willpower. Luca's gaze flicked over her, taking in the flower on her sleeve, the faint dark circles under her eyes, the small gold cross necklace she wore like armor. His eyes softened for half a second, then hardened again. "I could ask you the same thing," he said quietly. "Disappearing without a trace. Leaving a city. Leaving a marriage. Leaving." "Don't," Sophia cut in softly, but the word carried a warning. "Don't start in my shop." His gaze sharpened at the word shop. As if it offended him that she had built a life without him. As if it offended him even more that she had survived. The silence between them pulsed with everything they had never finished saying, years of pain compressed into a single moment. Then from the back room Sophia heard the sound that changed everything. Tiny footsteps. Fast. Excited. "Mama?" a small voice called. "Mama, Mita." Sophia's blood turned to ice. "No, not now." She turned slightly, trying to block Luca's view with her body, like her body could hide a truth this big. But her daughter burst through the back doorway like sunlight, curly dark hair bouncing, cheeks smudged with chocolate, holding a drawing in 2 small hands. "Look," Isabella announced proudly. "It's us in the bakery and there's a big rainbow." She held the picture up, beaming. Sophia's heart stopped. Because Luca's gaze shifted. From Sophia. To Isabella. And the moment his eyes locked onto the child's face, the air in the bakery seemed to snap. Luca went still. Not the way people go still when they're surprised. The way predators go still when they recognize a threat. Or when they recognize something precious. His pupils tightened. His lips parted slightly. And Sophia watched the exact second the truth hit him like a physical blow. Isabella had his eyes. Not exactly, hers were softer, more innocent. But the color was undeniable. That strange gold green that didn't belong to ordinary humans. She had his stubborn little chin. His straight nose. His bone structure. Like someone had carved Luca's features into a smaller, gentler version. Then warmed them with love. Isabella tilted her head at him. "Who are you?" she asked with the fearless curiosity only children had. Sophia forced a smile so her daughter wouldn't feel the fear clawing up her throat. "Carino," Sophia said gently, "why don't you go finish your drawing in the back? Mama has to talk to this customer." Isabella pouted. "But Please," Sophia whispered, and her voice cracked just enough for Isabella to notice. Her daughter's eyes widened a little. Then Isabella nodded, hugging her drawing to her chest and trotted back to the back room. The moment she vanished through the doorway, the silence returned, heavier than before. Luca's voice dropped to something terrifyingly calm. She's 4. It wasn't a question. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself to keep from shaking. She turned 4 last month. Luca took one step closer. Sophia instinctively stepped back, bumping the counter behind her. Not because she feared he would hurt her. Because she feared what being close to him would do to the defenses she'd built for 3 years. When, Luca said softly, were you planning to tell me I had a daughter? Sophia swallowed. I wasn't sure. His eyes flashed. For a moment, the cold mask slipped, and something ancient moved behind his expression. Something too controlled, too sharp, too inhuman to be normal anger. That's not an answer, he said. That's an excuse. Sophia lifted her chin. I left you a letter. Luca froze. What? A letter, she repeated, voice shaking now but steady enough to land. I left it in your office. 10 pages. Explaining everything. His brows drew together. Genuine confusion crossed his face. I never received any letter. Sophia stared at him, disbelief crashing through her chest. No, she whispered. That's impossible. I would have, Luca stopped, jaw tightening. I would have known. I would have come after you. Sophia laughed once, small, bitter, broken. Would you? She asked quietly. Or would you have gone back to your meetings and your important responsibilities and told yourself it was easier to let me go? Luca's eyes flared. The air in the bakery suddenly felt colder. Sophia's breath came out in a faint mist. She noticed it and her stomach sank. No, not here. Not now. The last thing she needed was Luca's world leaking into her little safe place. Because Luca's world wasn't just Mafia power. It was something worse. Something hidden. Something the human world didn't understand. Luca's voice dropped. I came to order an engagement cake. The word struck Sophia like a slap. Engagement. The very thing she had been decorating. She felt her face go blank even as pain sliced through her chest. Oh, she managed. Congratulations. Luca's gaze darkened. Don't what? Don't pretend you're happy for me, he said, stepping closer again. Not when your eyes look like they're bleeding. Sophia's throat tightened. You're free to marry whoever you want. Luca laughed, humorless, sharp. Free. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice like the bakery walls could betray him. You think I'm free? He murmured. My engagement is a business alliance. A peace treaty between powerful families. Sophia's stomach twisted. Because she knew those families. She didn't know the details of Luca's criminal empire, but she knew the names that made people disappear. She knew the whispers in the wealthy circles. She knew the quiet fear that followed Luca like a shadow. And she knew the truth no one spoke out loud. Because Luca Marchetti wasn't just a mafia boss. Luca Marchetti was a king. Not in the human sense. In the old sense. The kind of king who had ruled long before humans built cities. The kind of king whose blood carried secrets older than religion. Sophia kept her voice flat. Then marry her. Luca's gaze sharpened. You think it's that simple? It's not my problem, Sophia said, even though the words hurt to speak. We're divorced. Luca's expression shifted. Then he did something that made Sophia's entire spine go rigid. He inhaled slowly. Like he was smelling the air. Like he was reading something invisible. His eyes narrowed slightly, focused on her throat. Sophia's hand flew up to her necklace. He knew. He could smell fear. What? Heartbreak. That's what vampires did. They didn't just see you. They read you. And Luca had always been dangerously good at it. His voice dropped. She knows about me? Sophia swallowed. She asks about her father. Luca's face tightened. And what do you tell her? I tell her you have an important job, Sophia said quietly. I tell her you're far away. I tell her you're busy. Luca stared at her like she'd stabbed him. Busy? He repeated. That's what I was to you. Sophia's voice trembled. That's what you chose to be. For a moment, Luca looked like he might explode. Then, slowly, he forced himself to inhale and exhale, like he was pulling his humanity back into place. Give me your number, he said. Sophia blinked. Luca. Give me your number, he repeated, and his voice had that tone. The tone he used when a decision was made, and the world simply had to adjust. Sophia's hands shook as she recited it. Luca typed it into his phone without looking down. Then he lifted his gaze again. And Sophia saw something she never expected. Regret. Not the shallow kind. The kind that looked like it had been eating him alive. This isn't over, Luca said quietly. Not anymore. Sophia's chest tightened. You don't get to come back and rewrite the past. I'm not trying to rewrite it, he said. I'm trying to finally face it. Sophia wanted to believe him. But belief was what had ruined her before. She forced her voice steady. You came for a cake. Tell me what you want. Flavor, size, design. Then leave. Luca looked at the half-finished three-tier cake on her table. His eyes flicked to the roses. Then to Sophia's hands still dusted with sugar. You're decorating one already, he said. It's for a client, Sophia lied. Luca's gaze sharpened. He knew it was a lie. Because vampires didn't just see blood. They saw truth. But Luca didn't call her out. Instead, he stepped back slightly, lowering his voice again. I'll call you tonight, he said. We'll talk. We'll decide when I can see her again. You can't just. I can, Luca said softly. And I will. Sophia's mouth went dry. What about your fiancé? Luca's expression turned cold again. That's my problem. Sophia clenched her fists. And if she doesn't like it? Then she can leave, Luca said flatly. My daughter stays. The words were simple. But something inside Sophia cracked. Because she had spent 4 years telling herself Luca wouldn't care. That he wouldn't choose them. That she had to protect Isabella alone. And now he was standing in her bakery like a storm, claiming a child he hadn't known existed. Sophia's voice shook. You don't know what it means to be connected to you. Luca's eyes darkened with something dangerous. I know exactly what it means, he said. It means anyone who dares to touch her, answers to me. Sophia's skin went cold. Because that was what she feared. Not Luca's love. Luca's enemies. Luca's world. Luca's bloodline. And the truth she'd been hiding even from herself. Isabella wasn't fully human. Sometimes she didn't get sick. Sometimes she heard things Sophia couldn't. Once, when Isabella was 2, she had stared at a stranger in the street and whispered, "That man smells like rotten secrets." Sophia had laughed nervously, pretending it was imagination. But deep down she'd known. Isabella carried something ancient. And Luca, with his vampire king blood, had just confirmed it. From the back room, Isabella's voice called again. Mama? Tengo hambre. Sophia flinched. Luca's gaze flicked toward the sound, and his expression softened in a way Sophia had never seen before, like the child's voice had reached a part of him the world couldn't touch. He looked back at Sophia. Tonight, he repeated. I'll call. Then he turned toward the door. As he reached it, the bell jingled softly. But before he stepped out, he paused without looking back. And Sophia, Luca said, voice quieter now, for what it's worth, seeing you alive, seeing you here, is the best and worst thing that's happened to me in 3 years. Then he left. The door shut. The bakery felt too bright. Too loud. Too normal. Sophia stood frozen behind the counter, heart pounding, mind screaming. Because Luca Marchetti, vampire king hiding behind Mafia power, had just returned. And the safe, quiet life she'd built for her daughter was about to collide with a world of bloodlines, ancient laws, and enemies who didn't forgive. Sophia forced herself to inhale. Then exhale. Then she walked to the back room, plastering a smile onto her face like it was frosting. Because Isabella deserved peace. Even if Sophia had to break to protect it. And somewhere deep inside, another truth whispered, one Sophia didn't want to admit. Luca wasn't only danger. He might also be the only protection Isabella had against the darkness that was coming. The bakery closed at 7. Sophia locked the front door with hands that still hadn't stopped shaking. The bell above the door gave its usual soft chime, innocent and unaware that her entire life had just cracked open again. Outside, the street looked exactly the same. Cars passing, a neighbor walking a dog, a normal world that had no idea a vampire king had stood behind her counter less than an hour ago. She leaned her forehead against the glass door for a long moment and closed her eyes. Pull yourself together. Isabella needed dinner. Homework. A bedtime story. Not a mother unraveling because the past had walked in wearing $1,000 suit and eyes that saw too much. Mommy? Isabella's small voice came from behind her. Are we going to eat now? Sophia turned, forcing a smile that felt stitched onto her face. Yes, Corazon. Let's go home. That night, after Isabella finally fell asleep clutching her stuffed rabbit, Sophia stood alone in her tiny kitchen, a glass of wine untouched in her hand. Her phone lay on the counter. Silent. She stared at it anyway. Luca had said he would call. And no matter how much she hated herself for it, she knew he would keep his word. That was one thing Luca Marchetti had never been able to stop being, terrifyingly reliable. The memories came whether she wanted them or not. Their wedding day. She had been 23, naive enough to believe love could soften monsters. Luca had looked devastating in his tailored suit, eyes glowing faintly as he promised forever in a church that didn't know it was sheltering something ancient and undead. Back then she hadn't known he was a vampire king. She'd only known he was powerful, distant, and dangerous in ways people whispered about. The truth had come later. Slowly. In pieces. Like the night she'd cut her hand on broken glass and watched Luca's eyes flare gold, then watched him turn away, fists clenched, refusing to touch her until the bleeding stopped. Like the way he never aged in photos. Like the way men twice his size flinched when he entered a room. She took a shaky sip of wine. Her phone rang. Sophia jumped. She stared at the screen. Luca. Her heart pounded so hard she was sure it would wake Isabella. She answered on the second ring. Hello. Sophia. His voice came through low and rough, layered with tension. She could hear traffic in the background. I said I'd call. You did, she replied quietly. There was a pause, filled with things neither of them knew how to say. I need to see her, Luca said finally. Properly. Not like today. Sophia closed her eyes. She's for Luca. You can't just appear and disappear. I know. His voice softened. Tell me how to do this right. The words caught her off guard. Luca Marchetti didn't ask for instructions. He commanded, threatened, destroyed. Yet here he was asking her how to be a father. We'll go slowly, Sophia said. Tomorrow afternoon. The park near the bakery. I'll be there. Thank you, Luca said, and the gratitude in his voice sounded real. She hesitated. Your fiancée? I'll handle her, Luca interrupted. She will know about Isabella. She will respect her. And if she doesn't? A cold edge slid into his voice. Then she won't be part of my future. Sophia swallowed. There it was. That absolute certainty. That kingly authority that made the world bend or break. They hung up soon after, neither trusting themselves to say more. Sophia sat at the table long after the call ended, staring into nothing. Because hope was creeping back in. And hope was dangerous. Luca arrived at the park at exactly 2:55 p.m. Sophia noticed immediately. Punctuality meant something to him when it mattered. He dressed differently this time, dark jeans, a simple black sweater, no tie. He looked less like a crime lord, and more like a man trying not to frighten a child. Isabella sat beside Sophia on the bench, proudly sorting through a small collection of stones she'd gathered. That's him, Isabella whispered, peeking over. The man from the bakery. Yes, Sophia said gently. That's him. Luca approached slowly, hands in his pockets as if afraid to spook a wild animal. Hola, he said softly, crouching to Isabella's height. I'm Luca. Isabella studied him with unnerving seriousness. You have shiny eyes, she said. Luca blinked. Sophia's heart skipped. Well, Luca said carefully, your eyes are shiny too. Isabella smiled. Mommy says I see special things. Luca's gaze flicked to Sophia, sharp and questioning. Sophia gave a tiny shake of her head. Not now. Isabella held out a small stone. This one is my favorite. Luca took it like it was priceless. That's a very important stone, he said solemnly. You must have a good eye. Isabella beamed. And Sophia felt her chest tighten painfully. Because Luca, vampire king, feared leader, ancient predator, was kneeling in the dirt, listening to a 4-year-old explain her rock collection like it was a royal council meeting. Something in Luca shifted. She saw it. The way his shoulders eased. The way his voice softened. The way his entire being oriented toward this child like she was his true north. This was not an act. This was instinct. After a while, Isabella grabbed his hand without hesitation. Can you push me on the swing? She asked. Luca froze for half a second. Then he nodded. Yes, I'd like that. He pushed her carefully, always ready to catch her, eyes tracking every movement like a hawk guarding its nest. Sophia watched, heartbreaking and healing at the same time. This was what she had stolen from him. And from Isabella. Later, when Isabella ran off to climb the slide, Luca stood beside Sophia. She's perfect, he said quietly. Sophia crossed her arms. She's a child. She's mine, Luca said, not possessive, protective. Sophia's voice trembled. Your world is dangerous. I know. His gaze hardened. And I will burn it down before I let it touch her. Sophia shivered. Because she believed him. That night, Luca confronted his fiancée. Vanessa Castellano arrived at the bakery the next day like she owned the place. Designer heels, perfect makeup, a smile that never reached her eyes. So, Vanessa said smoothly, you must be Sophia. Sophia wiped her hands on her apron. You must be Vanessa. Vanessa's gaze flicked around the bakery with thinly veiled judgment. Charming, she said. Luca entered behind her. Enough, he said coldly. We're not doing this here. Vanessa turned to him, placing a hand on her stomach. I'm pregnant, Luca. The words landed like a bomb. Sophia felt the air leave her lungs. Luca went very still. Then his eyes narrowed. 8 weeks, he asked. Vanessa hesitated. Yes. Luca stared at her, something ancient calculating behind his gaze. You're lying, he said calmly. Vanessa's smile cracked. Excuse me? I haven't touched you in months, Luca said flatly. And you smell wrong. Sophia stiffened. Vanessa laughed sharply. You're imagining things. Luca stepped closer, his presence darkening the room. Leave, he said softly. Now. Vanessa's face twisted with fury. This isn't over, she hissed, storming out. The moment the door shut, Luca exhaled. I knew it, he muttered. A manipulation. Sophia stared at him. You could smell it. I can smell truth, he replied quietly. And lies rot. Their eyes met. And for the first time since the bakery, the tension between them shifted. From anger to something far more dangerous. Unfinished love. From the back room, Isabella giggled. Mama? He's glowing. Sophia froze. Luca's eyes widened. Because his reflection shimmered faintly in the mirror. And Isabella could see it. The truth was no longer buried. Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. What do you mean, he's glowing? She asked, forcing a laugh that sounded thin even to her own ears. Isabella stood in the doorway, her small finger pointing proudly. Like when the night bugs shine. But prettier. Luca slowly turned toward the reflective glass of the display case. For a split second Sophia saw it too. Not a bright glow, nothing dramatic. Just a faint, unnatural shimmer beneath his skin, like moonlight trapped underwater. It vanished the moment Luca straightened his posture and drew control back around himself. The air warmed again. Human normal again. Luca crouched in front of Isabella, lowering his voice. Only you can see that, Pequeña? Isabella nodded. I see lots of things. Mommy says I'm special. Luca's jaw tightened. Sophia stepped forward immediately, placing a gentle hand on Isabella's shoulder. Carino, go wash your hands. Lunch is almost ready. Isabella hesitated, then ran off humming. The moment she disappeared, Luca looked at Sophia, not with anger but with something close to awe. She can see through the veil, he said quietly. Sophia's heart hammered. I don't know what you're talking about. You do, Luca replied gently. You've known something was different since she was born. Sophia closed her eyes. She remembered the night Isabella had been born during a blackout, how the hospital lights flickered when the baby cried for the first time. How the nurse had crossed herself without knowing why. How Isabella's tiny fingers had clutched Sophia's hand with impossible strength. She's just a child, Sophia whispered. She deserves a normal life. Luca nodded slowly. And she won't get one, unless she's protected. The danger came sooner than Sophia expected. 2 nights later, as she locked up the bakery, a man stepped out of the alley across the street. Wrong. Sophia's instinct screamed. He smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp. Lovely shop, he said. Smells sweet. Like blood warmed by love. Sophia stepped back, heart racing. I don't know who you are. Oh, but I know you, he replied. The human woman who carried royal blood. The one who disappeared with something precious. Her stomach dropped. He took another step closer. Give the child to us, he said softly. She doesn't belong in the human world. The streetlights flickered. The man never reached her. Luca appeared between them like a shadow given form, grabbing the stranger by the throat and lifting him off the ground with inhuman ease. You speak my daughter's name, Luca growled, eyes blazing gold, and you breathe your last. The man laughed even as his feet dangled uselessly. You can't hide her forever, King. The covens know. The child awakened. Luca's grip tightened. There was a sickening crack. The body crumpled to the ground like an empty coat. Sophia stared, shaking. Luca turned to her instantly, eyes softening, glow fading. Did he touch you? She shook her head. Luca pulled her into his arms without asking, holding her tightly. I will not let them take her, he vowed. I swear it on blood older than this city. Sophia pressed her face into his chest, trembling. This is why I ran. I know, Luca said quietly. And you were right to be afraid. That night, Luca told her everything. About the ancient vampire bloodlines. About the laws that forbade hybrids. About the prophecy whispered among the old covens, of a child born of human compassion and royal darkness, one who could see truth without hunger. They call her the Dawnborn, Luca said. A bridge. A threat. Sophia hugged her knees. She didn't ask for this. No, Luca agreed. But the world will come for her anyway. What do we do? Luca met her gaze, unwavering. We stand together. Silence stretched between them. You left to protect her, he said softly. I should have understood. Tears slid down Sophia's cheeks. I loved you too much to let your world destroy her. Luca reached out, stopping just short of touching her face. Let me protect you now. Sophia hesitated, then nodded. For the first time in years she let herself lean into him. From the bedroom, Isabella's sleepy voice drifted out. Mommy? The shadows are scared. Luca smiled faintly. They should be. Sophia wrapped her arms around her daughter as Luca stood guard at the doorway, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The war had begun. But for the first time, Sophia wasn't fighting alone. The queen who chose love. The covens did not wait long. 3 nights after the alley incident, the city changed. Not in ways humans could name, but in ways Sophia felt in her bones. The air grew heavier after sunset. Streetlights dimmed more often. Shadows stretched where they shouldn't, lingering like they were listening. Isabella noticed first. The night is angry, she whispered one evening as Sophia tucked her into bed. But Daddy says it can't hurt us. Sophia's breath caught. Daddy. She glanced toward the doorway where Luca stood, silent and watchful, his presence wrapped around their small apartment like an invisible shield. You can say it, Luca said gently. I want her to. Sophia swallowed hard, emotion burning behind her eyes. Because despite everything, despite the danger, the bloodlines, the war approaching, Luca had not missed a single bedtime since the night he'd killed for them. He cooked breakfast. He walked Isabella to preschool. He listened when Sophia spoke. No phone calls during dinner. No disappearing acts. No excuses. And Sophia realized something terrifying. This man had not just changed. He had chosen. The covens came at midnight. They did not knock. The windows shattered inward as shadows poured into the apartment like smoke-given teeth. The temperature dropped instantly, frost crawling up the walls. Sophia grabbed Isabella, holding her tight. Luca stepped forward. And when he did, the room seemed to bow. His eyes burned molten gold now, no longer hidden. The air vibrated with power, old, sovereign, absolute. You stand in my territory, Luca said calmly. And you break the ancient law of invitation. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall, robed, eyes glowing red with hunger and fear. The child violates the law, the coven leader hissed. A hybrid born of royal blood and human weakness. She is not weak, Luca said. His voice did not rise. It didn't need to. She is compassionate. And that terrifies you. The shadows recoiled slightly. Sophia felt it then. Something stirring inside her chest. Warm. Strong. Luca turned his head just enough to look at her. Sophia, he said softly. Now. She understood. Without knowing how, Sophia stepped forward, holding Isabella's hand. The coven laughed. A human? The leader sneered. You protect her with a woman who can barely survive your world? Sophia met his gaze. And for the first time in her life she didn't lower her eyes. I survived raising a child alone, Sophia said, voice steady. I survived loving a king who didn't know how to love back. I survived fear, poverty, and abandonment. Her chest burned brighter. And I am still standing. Isabella squeezed her hand. The light came then. Not from Luca. Not from Isabella. From Sophia. A soft, radiant glow, warm as dawn, spread through the room, pushing back the shadows like sunlight through fog. The coven screamed. No, the leader gasped. Impossible, she's human. Luca stared at Sophia in stunned silence. She chose you, he whispered. The truth snapped into place. Isabella wasn't the only bridge. Sophia had always been one. Her kindness. Her resilience. Her refusal to become cruel in a cruel world. That was the missing power. Love freely chosen. The ancient magic responded. You see now, Luca said, stepping beside her. This is why you feared her. Not because she is dangerous, but because she changes us. The coven leader fell to his knees, burning from the light. We only wanted control, he begged. Luca's voice turned cold. And that, he said, is why you lose. With a single gesture, the shadows were torn apart, scattered into nothingness. The coven was gone, banished, not killed. Justice without cruelty. Silence fell. The apartment slowly returned to normal. Sophia sank to her knees, shaking. Luca caught her instantly, holding her like she was something precious, something sacred. You were never weak, he murmured. You were the answer. Isabella yawned. Can we sleep now? Sophia laughed through tears, pressing a kiss to her daughter's hair. Yes, baby. The night isn't angry anymore. At dawn, Luca stood on the balcony, the rising sun painting the city gold. He didn't burn. He didn't hide. Sophia stepped beside him. What happens now? She asked. Luca took her hand, openly, proudly. Now, he said, I dismantle what remains of the old order. No more covens ruling through fear. No more laws written without compassion. And us. He turned to her fully, eyes soft. I will rule, Luca said, but not as a tyrant. I will rule as a guardian. He lowered himself to one knee. Not as a king demanding loyalty. As a man asking for trust. Stand with me, he said. Not because of destiny. Not because of power. But because we choose each other. Sophia thought of the bakery. The small apartment. The nights she cried alone. Then she thought of this man, who had learned too late but learned fully. She lifted his face and kissed him. I choose you, she said. Isabella clapped. Mommy's a queen. Luca smiled, a real smile, unguarded and bright. Yes, he said. She is.